Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours. Tuesdays at noon Eastern, I like to spend a little bit of time answering questions from people because I believe job hunting doesn't have to be as hard, difficult, painful, or take as long as it does. It's just the skills needed to find a job are different from those needed to do a job. And, given all my experience in recruiting and in helping people as a coach, now what I try to do is make it easy for folks to find work. Now, I'm a little bit awkward today because, frankly, I'm not at my home office. You see, I live in Asheville, North Carolina. By now, most of you around the world may have heard of Asheville and know that we've had horrendous flooding there. And we have our power out, no water, no internet. So we transported ourselves to my wife's mom's home in New Jersey. So that's why I missed last week. No water, no power, no nothing. No internet. Actually, internet came on over the weekend, but not for my computer. I could have it on my phone, completely wireless, but it's been hell. So Monday we took a long drive to New Jersey, and we're able to get ourselves situated here. And I'll just simply say I'm appreciative to have a place that has running water, where I can take a shower, where there's functioning, and there's a lot that's being taken care of around me. So, thank you. And I'll just simply say for today, if you've got a question for me, put it into chat so I can answer it live. And that's what I'm here to do, answer your questions live. I'll also tell you that I want to encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. And by the way, everything's going to take a little bit more time for me today than usual because this is not my normal setup. I'll say to you that, my normal office, things are easy. They're comfortable. I'm sitting here at a snack table on a chair with a halogen light in front of me. My lighting isn't as good. If I point up at that, my finger disappears as opposed to normally it appears. It's rough, but it's a lot better than what I have in North Carolina right now. So thank you for your patience today. I'm here to serve and want to try returning to a regular schedule of this. I'm still doing coaching, but I'll say to you that things are a lot tougher doing it this particular way. And I'll just say that if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Mention that you started watching this. I like knowing that I'm helping some folks. Once we're connected, your network is going to be a lot larger because, frankly, I was among the first 10,000 people on LinkedIn. And, my network is a lot larger than most people's because between my brand and being an early adopter on the platform, people come to me with regularity. So, again, linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Now, before I start answering questions, let me just do what I often do, which is a quick commentary about some aspect of the job market or job search. And on Friday, the jobs report came out, and it looked pretty good, plus 234,000. And I started to dig in deeper, and I found there was a couple of quirky things about the report. So let's start off with September is a bad month for jobs. After all, students are leaving summer jobs. That it negatively affects jobs. There are seasonal positions that are ending, like camp counselors. They're leaving jobs. And there are teachers that are moving from private to public sector employment in time for the school year. So those, the teachers switching from one to another kind of evens out, but the other stuff has an effect. Now, the interesting thing is when you look at the report, it's a little bit off. And I'll say private sector employment dropped by 458,000 jobs. And then they started seasonal adjustments. Now, seasonal adjustments happen every month, but September, they tend not to be as great as what they did here. Plus 681,000 new jobs, or let me restate that. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics made an adjustment of plus 681,000 jobs, which is the third largest September adjustment on record. The only two that were larger than that were in 2019 and 2020. How they came up with the number in 2020, I have no idea. There we were in the middle of COVID, and they're saying lots of new jobs were created. Bull. No matter. Let's look at this one. So you wonder whether or not 681,000 jobs were added in for political reasons. After all, when President Obama was still in office and running for re-election, they made a surprise adjustment that allowed a series of bad job markets then in September to look good just in time for the election. So I'll simply say the seasonal adjustments is the big reason why we have a plus number here. Not because they have any evidence of new jobs, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in an effort to even things out, evened it out with the third largest group increase that they've come up with to date. So that's a quick comment about the jobs report. Let me go on and say, again, if you've got a question for me, put it into chat so I can answer it live. Now, I didn't do the show last week because, as I said, I live in Asheville, and we were really, my house is fine, but we had no power, no water, no light, no nothing. So I have some questions backed up from them, and plus some new ones that were sent to me on LinkedIn that I'm going to address. And if you've got a question for me, put it into chat so I can answer it live, okay? So the first question I received is, what do handwritten job application cover letters say about the candidate? Okay. I'm not sure how you transmit a handwritten cover letter anymore. After all, most of the time we're uploading emails or uploading to an applicant tracking system or emailing a resume. I think it's pretty dumb to do it that way. Maybe they want to show off beautiful handwriting that they have, that they think it's attractive. I don't think of this as a guy thing to do. I think of this as a woman thing to do. That's my own opinion or bias about it. But I think they're trying to show something about themselves that I don't fully understand by doing it as a handwritten application or cover letter. And I say it that way because the fact is, it's not useful for the systems. They have trouble parsing the information when it's handwritten. So what does it say about them? They're trying to show something about themselves that's beyond my capability to understand. So whatever it is, good luck. I hope it works for you. Let's go to the next question. Can you have two current jobs on LinkedIn? Yes. Imagine for a second someone has two part-time jobs, or they have a full-time job and a part-time job, or someone like me who's a self-employed coach who does work for another firm on a part-time basis, as part of what I do. So yes, you can have two part-time jobs on LinkedIn, or two jobs on LinkedIn. Let's say you have a full-time job and a part-time job, or two part-time jobs. Why not? Do it. Especially if it makes a case for why you'd be qualified for roles that you're particularly interested in. Do it. It can only help you. And if it doesn't help you, don't include it. If it's not something that's going to make you stand out in a good way, don't include it. Otherwise, all you're doing is hurting yourself so that it makes you less desirable. Okay, let's continue on with more. And again, if you've got a question for me, put it in the chat so I can answer it live. Okay. Next question is, what can happen if you apply for a job, but the sender's name is different from the name on your resume? Hmm. Um, so for people who are foreign born, that's a common occurrence because they're trying to be accommodating for the U.S. audience. And I say it that way because Americans have their own biases about people with foreign names and foreign and accents. So they may be trying to hide the fact that they're foreign born. Uh, so, you may have an Asian name of some sort. And this is the most common thing, whether it's, doesn't matter what country it's from, but a name that reflects the culture of your family's culture of origin. And it's going to be a problem in the U.S. Maybe people will have trouble pronouncing it. And thus, you want to be more accommodating for that audience. And thus, you Americanize it. When, W-E-N, may become Wendy, which is a more understandable name for uh, a person in the U.S. to understand you. And they'll think you're an American versus, hi, I was born in Taiwan, or I was born in the People's Republic and emigrated to the United States. So you're trying to overcome that. Or your parents gave you a foreign name and you were born in the US and you're trying to avoid the biases that exist. I know when we adopted our son from Central Asia, he had a given name already that I thought would be a problem for him in the States. So we gave him an American first name and kept his original name as his middle name, and then, of course, our last name. So there are a lot of reasons for it, but the idea is to have a degree of consistency with your LinkedIn profile for what your name is. And thus, if your real name is Wen, to use that example again, and you've Americanized it for common occurrences, when you fill out an application, you put your real name first, and in quotation marks, you might put Wendy there, so that people understand that what you've done, and there are no surprises later on for them. Because one thing I know about job search, surprises are really good. Okay, so I'll just simply say, I'd love to help more of you, and I have a lot more questions to get to today. And one of the ways I do that is at JobSearch.Community. Which, if you look over my shoulder there's the website address. I normally point to it, but when I do that, my finger's disappearing because there's nothing really behind me. So, again, JobSearch.Community, where you have access to all my video courses, books, and guides. Plus, I can coach you there, answer your questions, and do a lot to help you. Again, that's JobSearch.Community. Come over to the site. You'll see a list of all that I have available there. I've made it inexpensive for the content and the ability to ask me questions. And if you want coaching from me, I have different tiers of service that you can work with, depending upon how much work you wanted us to do together. Again, that site is JobSearch.Community. Let's go on to the next question. Bear with me for a second while I copy it. Like I said before, everything's a little bit more awkward because I'm not at my desk, because my desk is back in Western North Carolina. And I have to copy and paste on this snack table with my laptop. And, it's a little bit more squeezed. Have no idea when we can return because there's no water available. So it's complicated for us right now. So I'm just encouraging, please be a little patient and kind with me while I sort this out, okay? So the next question is, why do job hunters frequently dismiss smaller companies when looking for their next career move? Oh, that one's easy. The reason for it is they've been led to believe that large companies um, are more stable than small companies. They don't understand that large companies lay off a lot of people. When times are tough, a large company will lay off. And they'll lay off in pretty significant numbers. And Lord knows we've seen that happen time and time again, where people have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. It's just the nature of the economy and such that prompts them, a firm, to reduce staff. We don't need you anymore, right? And thus they let people go. A smaller firm can do the same thing. They may close their doors altogether and people lose their jobs. But the question is really about what it is that why it is that people dismiss smaller firms when they're looking for their next career move. They don't know anything about them. The firm hasn't branded themselves. They think of small companies as being less stable than large companies, when the reverse is actually true about that one. There's a lot of explanations for it that I think most people make a mistake by ignoring a small firm, even when times are good. If anything, people get more and better experiences at smaller firms than at larger firms. So why they do it? They're because they're making a mistake is ultimately it. There's a lot of different versions of that mistake, and that's why it happens. Here we go. Next question. Is including an objective in a resume necessary? How do employers view resumes with and without an objective section? I'll tell you, objectives are one of the dumbest things that people do on their resume. Why do I say that? Really easy. Because often the objective a person has is different than what the objective is from an employer. You know, when I was in college back in the Stone Ages, the typical objective would say something like, I'm looking for a progressive organization where I can learn and grow and get ahead. Something typically simple like that. And what a firm would think about themselves is, this is like the last 25 that I've seen, and I've got a nice dead-end job here that if someone does well, we'll give them raises and promotions. We don't expect them to stay forever, but it's not one where they can learn and grow. So people disqualify themselves from situations because they wind up using an objective. Don't do it. It can only hurt you. I've never heard of a person getting hired because they wrote a great objective. I don't even think they get interviews because they wrote a great objective. So that's the fact of it. Don't do it. How do employers look at resumes with an objective? Often mockingly, they make fun of what was written and reject people because they think they won't be interested in their job. So just skip it, go right into the resume itself without the nonsense of the objective section, okay? Here, we got more coming. Oh, I remember this one. As a programmer, I asked for and received a promotion and raise a few months ago. Would it be wrong for me to now make a lateral move to a company I've had my eye on for years? It's a 15% increase and a much more professional development environment. Take the freaking job that you really want to have. Seriously, take the job that you want. Yes, go. Do not waste any time on this. It's not wrong of you to look out for your own interests. It's not about the money necessarily. It's about doing what you think is right for you, just as they do that for them. So just do it. If it's Have another conversation with that firm. Don't over talk about it. Have all your questions answered by them. Then take the job that you really want to have at this stage. And go back to do what you think is right for you. To do it's very not unprofessional. It's doing what you think is right for your career and thus um, interesting. There we go. Doing what you think is right for you in your career so that in this way you can. Here's a fun one. What's a polite way? Oh, this is interesting. What's a polite way to decline a job during a second or third interview when you learn the salary and perks, like paid holidays, travel, what have you, um, is not satisfactory? The interviewer is, let's see now, in front of you and has offered you the position. The polite way is, I'd like to think about this for a little bit and circle back to you in a day or so. Well, what's to think about? Well, there's a lot to consider. This is an important step for me in my career. So I'd like to discuss it with my husband, wife, partner. I've got a mentor I speak with. I'll circle back to you in 2 days. If I have any questions, don't worry. I'll come to you first and have those answered, and then you'll have my decision. That's the polite way to do it. You can just simply say, I have better offers than this right now with comparable organizations. It's not you, obviously, but money's important to me. You mean you turned down a job for the money? Yeah, just like you. Just like you would. Well, I would never do that. Well, I don't know how you're paying your bills then, but most people I know have financial responsibilities that require them to be compensated in a particular way. And right now, I'm in the position of trying to make a decision about what's right for me in my career. And, this seems like a great opportunity, but I'd like to think about it and the consequences of saying yes to this and circle back to you in 2 days after I've consulted with everyone. That's important to me. That's the polite way to do it. Whether that's the way you want to do it, that's your choice. But that's the polite way to do it. And that's what you asked me for. Okay. So again, if you got a question for me, put your questions into chat so I can answer them live. Okay. And I'm also going to mention connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. Mention that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And also this JobSearch.Community. I've got some free stuff on the homepage that you can download, including diagnosing your job search problems. I've got a video about elevator pitches that's really good. It's the kind of advice about the kind of elevator pitch to use where you're not going to feel like you need to take a shower afterwards because you've said something so slimy and despicable. It just reeks to you. So again, that's JobSearch.Community. And again, we're at Career Coach Office Hours for October 8th, 2024. Let's go to our next question, which is, what should be your best answer to the question, why do you think this job is for you? Usually this question is going to be asked during HR. It's not going to be asked by a hiring manager. If it is, I'll get to that in a second. But if asked by an HR person, it's probably at a screening round. So you have the ability to say, what I read about the job seemed interesting. However, I want to be clear. I don't know what you're prepared to pay. I have no idea what the real job is because I haven't spoken to my future boss, met the team, have a sense of what it's like to work here. But superficially, based upon what I've read, this seems interesting for me. And the firm has a great reputation. But you're asking me to persuade you that I believe this is the right job for me. I don't know that yet for a fact. Not playing their game is important for you to demonstrate your spine. Now, if this is asked by the hiring manager, you can say much the same thing, but a little bit of a variation. The variation is to say, I'm here learning about the job, and here we are talking, and we spent a few minutes with one another, and you're asking me why I think this job is for me. I don't know that yet. I know the firm and its reputation. What I saw advertised, or I was told by Rona, the recruiter, seemed interesting, but I need to get a feel for this. Now, the terrain, who my coworkers are like. I'm trying to find out, what my predecessor in this role did well, what they didn't do well, and why people like working here. There's a lot I don't know yet. So, I can answer this question in our next conversation. But for today, for me, I'm here to impress upon you my capabilities to do this job. And then from there, learn more so I can make a good decision. That to me is a great way to answer it without going into a lot of BS that makes them uncomfortable and you feeling like a liar, which frankly, on their side, they deserve to be lied to if they ask you that kind of a question. Strength to stand in front of them and say, I don't know that this is the right job for me yet. And play it that way, like I've been talking about, rather than to try and lie or con them in some way into hiring you. Yeah. And this may be my last question. I may do one more. I'll figure that out in a minute. But the question is for today, why are completely random profiles showing as third degrees, that's third degree connections, even though my LinkedIn profile is brand new? Easy. And that requires that you understand the LinkedIn system of things. A first level connection are people that you're directly connected with. That I'm sure you understand. So, for example, if you connected with your coworkers on LinkedIn or your friends and family on LinkedIn, those are all first level connections, but they are connected to people. And thus, who these people are, you may not know. So they are your second level connections. The first level are the people you know who you're connected with, and the people who they know who you don't know are the second level connections. Now, the third level connections are the people who they know who you don't know. And thus, how they show up there is your first levels are connected to people and they are connected to people. And thus, those individuals show up as your third level connection. I'm going to try and sneak in one more question. Bear with me for 1 second so I can get that copied. Okay, enough music. And we go on with, what is the best answer for the question, tell me about yourself for software professionals? Oh God, I've answered this question a million times in different variations. Let's start off with a premise. Job descriptions are maybe 80% accurate because they're all previously institutionally approved, haven't been updated, and they get recycled time and time again. So the result winds up being they've evolved the job, but they're using this job description to get it approved quickly without any rewrites, which saves them time. So the long and the short of it is, the best way to answer it is by starting off by saying, hey, thanks for making time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it. I recall the position description, but I want to get your take on the role. Would you tell me about the job as you see it and what I can do to help? And then once you have that answer, in a minute and a half-ish, you begin by saying, I've been in the field now for however many years it is. For the last few years, I've been working for so-and-so where I've done this and that and this and that. And before that, I worked with such and such organization where I did this kind of work. And here's the magic phrase. But what's probably most relevant in my background for this role is my experience with, and then you connect the dots between what they're looking for and what you've done. That's the best way to do it because, and again, to keep your answers to about a minute and a half, because by doing that in a minute and a half, you've confirmed the basic information that caused them to want to interview you, that demonstrated your fit for the role, so that you can move on and speak to them about your capabilities and answer their other questions. So the idea is find out about the job first, then connect the dots between your background and what they're looking for. So, with that, I hope you found today's show helpful. I'm Jeff Altman. Visit my website, JobSearch.Community, where I have video courses, books, and guides to help you with your job search. And you can ask me questions, get coaching from me. There's a lot there that's available to help you. Again, that's JobSearch.Community. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. Mention that you saw this. I like knowing that I'm helping some folks. Once we're connected, your network is going to be a lot larger. That's one of the great things about it. I've got 30,000 first level connections. You don't. If you do, that's great, but most people don't. And thus, what you're able to do is get advice and help from me in a variety of different venues. I hope you have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.